I said, they got some that you buy that you can put on and take off if I really wanted for it. I was looking at
what you think about the adventure bikes?
I don't do adventure riding.
What you mean?
I don't do adventure riding. Adventure riding is off-road, going across the desert, going, that's adventure riding. I don't do that kind of riding.
Nah, not necessarily. I know a lot of guys that used to come by the shop that get adventure bikes. It just depends on what type of tires you get. Now, if you got these 50-50 tires and you plan on going through that, but the reason why a lot of guys get adventure bikes also is for the ride, the seat, the sitting position, one, which helps with the, of course, like if you are going across terrain, but it has bags, it's made to go long distances the same way with comfort. That's why a lot of guys that go with touring bikes, a lot of times will get an adventure bike and just get like 70-30 tires, or in your case, you just get road tires on it. But the suspension is made for if you gotta pull over and you know what I'm saying, hit a little dirt or something like that. It's not going to be too sensitive. I know, especially like out here in the Carolinas, Georgia, back roads and stuff like that. Cats be wanting to. Hold up, somebody's entering the room.
Yeah, I mean,
who's that? Is that Kimmit or Devon?
It's Devon.
That's Devon. That's what 347. That's Devon.
Yo, B, what up?
I'm here haunting this Halloween.
Yeah, here he go. Peace, son. What's
How's
up,
it going?
man?
Sure, I can't see you. I know I don't got my glasses on, but I know you don't.
He don't have his video on.
Oh, turn your video on.
Oh, I just dialed it. Yeah. I don't have Zoom.
You can just dial in. You can just dial in when you don't have Zoom.
Yeah, that's what was in the email you sent me. It was just the call in. Yeah, so I just called in.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It's like what's the other one? Like GoToMeeting. Like if you don't have it installed, you can just dial in.
What's good though, man?
Oh, maintaining.
I forgot it was Halloween, man. Like, I knew it was the 31st. I knew it was like the last day in October. I knew it was Halloween. But until Nadia's
been out of Brooklyn for so long.
Yeah, like Nadia. No, not even. Nadia's like, she's like, oh, the kids, we ran out of candy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, candy, Halloween, right?
Devon, I told him that's a sign that he's old. See, when you got kids that are no longer into that, you don't think about that world no more.
Not even that, too. I think, too, I live in like a 90% Indian community. It's probably like, not even, probably more than 90%. So it's another holiday.
That is popping for Diwali.
I was about to say, it's another holiday that I always forget. I know I'm always asleep on the 4th of July, usually. So I always get fireworks and forget to bust them off. And then they got a holiday that they get crazy for. And I usually have fireworks for them for that. I can't ever think of the name of it, though.
It's Diwali.
Diwali. Is that like a new year?
Diwali popped off.
Diwali gets crazy. Yeah, they always they absorb my fireworks in minutes.
I only seen it once, that Diwali thing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's super peaceful. Like everybody's like super peaceful people walk around. Like the calm around here is super calm until that day. Then I get fireworks. It's like 4th of July have nothing on it, for real, for real.
Yeah, I've only been to one. As a matter of fact, it was in Queens.
Diwali festival go hard, yeah. Especially if you're looking like Jackson Heights.
Because I could barely hear him. Am I doing something wrong?
No, I can hear him.
You can hear him well, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear him. So, Devon, what's good, man? I'll speak to you in a minute, man. I miss you.
I miss you too, bro. I tried to call you. And see, that was my first mistake. Because the international man of mystery himself does not hold on to a phone number for too long.
Gotta keep it moving.
I've been trying to call for a minute. Tasha's been like, yo, let me let you holler at my man Tone.
Nah. Nah, let me see that. I'm trying to. Okay, there we go. Now, I don't know why it seems like that. Me and Pop was talking about that the other day. I was like, I don't know why my number always changes. I don't know why it's like this. It is always a valid reason. Like, it's always like super valid.
But you can never remember it. How valid is it if you can't remember what the reasons are?
Right.
No, I remember what the reasons are, like the whole trail of reasons. I won't bore with the details on this time, but they're always usually super valid. I think the common denominator is I just never really fight for the number. Like, it's usually a transition that's like me really vulgar and upset on the phone with customer service. I'm just like, just give me a new phone. Just give me a new number. It's one of those situations. And
no. Sounds like him though. That sounds like it. That sounds like my boy. That sounds like my boy.
That's
But
me.
you know what I wanted to comment on, and I was trying to log on while you was doing this YouTube video, Taj, when you was talking about the Delaware River Gap trip.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get her. You should have saw. If you could have seen me, I was over here dying. I was screaming. But it is funny to hear it from somebody else's perspective, because the only place that I know is my perspective. So it was fun to hear you talk about it from your perspective, because when we were talking about when we was going down, and you said you turned around and said we made it. That's not what I heard. I didn't even hear you say anything. As a matter of fact, it was the look on your face like, uh-oh. And then we hit the rock and the rock went up. So when you said, you turned around and said, we made it. And I gave you the look at this to say.
No, we didn't.
I was dying. But that was
I'm gonna send you the video. Though. I don't know if you saw it. I was kind of just putting some stories together. I was talking to Pop, telling him he should put some stories together, and I just want to put a couple of stories together here on YouTube wherever it was. I think it was YouTube.
I got about 6 or 7. I just haven't published them, put them out there yet, because when I look at them, I see there's other things that I would like to, or something that I wanted to say to explain to make that sound, more in the direction. But the more I started doing them, the more I'm saying, who cares?
Yo, me, I was about to say, I never really look back. I'll say what I say. I always say, I should have said this, or I could have said that. I left out a small detail or whatever. But a lot of times I really don't even listen to stuff when I go back. I hate to sound like, your favorite artist or somebody, Prince or somebody. I sound so Michael Jackson-ish, right? Like, hey, I don't listen to my work afterwards. Yeah, I feel like that gives me anxiety, so I just let it rip. I'm bad with recording stuff too. Like, I'm better with like something live, because if it's live, I'll just go. But if it's recording, I'll always be like, stop, all right, let's do that again. And it'll always be like at hello. You know what I'm saying? Or at the opening thing. Hey, what's up? No, stop. Do that again. Yo, what up? No, hold up. Let's do that one more time. Hey, it's me. Hold up. Wait.
No, I'm not that bad, though. I'm not that bad.
I am.
I'm gonna send.
I am definitely that bad.
I already know Devon. But see, with Devon out in my mind, it's all in the setup. Like, I know in my head, he has the perfect light hanging from right here. not perfect, but somehow he got it rigged where everything is set up and he got notes on the board behind whatever he's looking at. Me, I'm usually just like with shuffling paper or something like that.
Oh man, you guys are sophisticated. I just sit there and for 20, 30 minutes, just puke up stuff. I just don't even, but I'm gonna send Devon one or two of them. I should share them more, but I was hoping that I can get something that, a package together. So I would always have content. But that's the thing. I think that's the weakness of social media or trying to get a viewership or whatever in social media is you have to keep providing content. You got to keep your content bank full, and that's where a lot of them fall off.
You got a lot of stuff though, Pop, like with your time off and stuff like that, being retired. You got, I mean, stuff for days if you think about it. Your stuff with your bike, working with your bike, winterization with your bike, getting your garden together in the summer, getting your garden together in the winter, leaf stuff, Home Depot runs,
making these quilted pillows.
What about the fish?
Yeah.
Devon, about the fish?
Oh no, Devon, man, my fish. I don't know what happened to homeboy. Yeah. He broke the heater, the glass heater, and I didn't realize it, But I noticed that for over a week, he was just in the corner. He wouldn't move, he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't budge. He was just in the corner. So I went to put my hand in the water to check because I saw something shiny on the bottom, and when I put my hand in the water, I got an electric shock. So I said, "Oh man, this can't be true." I said, "This can't be true." So I put my hand in the water again and got another shock. I said, "This water, I'm electrocuting my fish. I'm deep frying my boy."
Oh man!
And he was living like that for over a week. So I took the heater out and I, cleaned the glass out, and he wouldn't eat still for like another week. I mean, here's like almost 2 weeks he hasn't eaten anything. And what I did was about maybe 3 days, 4 days in, I bought him some goldfish because, he's a predator. And generally he'll suck them right off. I mean, he'll chase them down but I mean, he didn't. For 2 days, he didn't even eat the goldfish. And then one by one, he started eating them until yesterday, he ate the last one. But I'm trying to electrocute my fish. The water was actually, you could feel the tingle of the water when you put it, Oh, man.
You tried to make an electric eel.
An electric?
No, we tried to make fish and chips.
I tried to boil fish and chips, right?
Right, dude.
Oh man, I felt so bad. He still hasn't come onto this side of the tank much. The side of the tank that had the heater, he stays on that other half of the tank.
Right, he's staying away from the strongest part of the current.
Yeah, last time I went over there, I got stung. I ain't going over there no more. But when I change the water next, I think that's going to get him out, hopefully. But see that I could have had a 20-minute video on how you retire and you kill your fish through electrocution. See?
So I'm saying all that's valid. It's valuable learning information.
Everybody wondered if I was crazy. I'm just giving them evidence.
Yo, Devon, what's going on? What's going on in New York right now, man? Paint a picture for me. I ain't been in a while. I hear, you gotta have I guess scan or something on your phone to get in a lot of places. I don't know if the trains are crowded.
Yeah, if you don't have a car at restaurants, you have to have a car. We went down to what's the name in the Bronx? What's that? Seafood City Island on our motorcycle.
City Island, yeah.
And they said that if we didn't have vaccination cards, we'd have to eat outside. So I guess that's going to slow down business this winter when you can't eat outside. But yeah,
I mean, people were eating outside. They were eating outside last year, in like January, eating outside in snowstorms, things like that. They didn't really,
January.
I don't really know. Yeah, January. They did not care. They were just. I mean, if you think about it, most of New York is just like, blanquitos from the Midwest now anyway. So
That's a fact.
this is like they're out in like the first week of February. Like, oh, it's like June weather out here. We good. So it's still like cats walking around in shorts that time of year.
It's not.
But
It's
like,
not
it hasn't
cold,
really been. Huh?
It's not cold yet, right?
I mean, I'm always cold. So, like, I'm like medically always cold.
Like upper
So I have
50s,
no idea.
lower
I have
60s.
no idea how to scan it. But I also don't know how it is with the restaurants and all that anyway, because I hadn't really been doing restaurants for the longest anyway. Because like,
I was waiting to say like 10, 15 years.
I'm allergic to soy, so everything has got a soy additive in it instead of like just using like real food. It's just like soy lecithin, soy flour, soy powder, soy this. Yeah, it's like it's just a bunch of alchemy with just the soybean. There's 9 different things, and it's just I can't deal with any of that, so I just kick it at the crib.
But hold up, bro. Hold up. Let's spin the block on that real quick, because you jump right to make your own bread, and that's gangster as hell. I always hear you say you're making your own bread. That's regular for me to hear you say that, but I remember you said like soy is in everything, and you being allergic to soy is rough. Explain that though, because what I'm noticing, I remember you said this a while ago, and you brought that to my attention, and I always thought about it because you don't eat a lot of meat. It's like you think about it and everything is soy, and I feel like everything is soy now, and it's rough. How does that work? How do you get around that? How would somebody that's allergic to soy? I think a lot of people are now finding out that they're allergic to soy and what soy is and where it's at and how they use it.
I cook stuff from scratch. That's about it. Like, I don't buy a jar of sauce. I'll just make a sauce.
A jar? You don't buy a jar of what?
Like sauce or anything like that. Like,
Yes.
I mean, obviously not soy sauce, but like barbecue sauce, things like that. Ketchup, soybean oil. I just get a can of tomatoes, and just do it like Goodfellas style with the razor blade, slicing the garlic real thin. That's just it. So
what do they use the soy for? Because I don't get it. You can get a can of tomato and you got some basil and you got some thyme and you got some salt, some pepper, some garlic. What the hell are they using so much soy for in their brand recipe?
What are they substituting soy?
Not necessarily soy in the sauce. That's more of like I just want some regular sauce. Like I could do so much more with a tomato than I can with a bottle of ketchup. Like I might not want ketchup more than like 3 times out of the year. So if I want ketchup that bad, I just, do it down to like tomato paste and then, hook it up, make some ketchup. But if I have the tomatoes, like even if it's just like, canned tomatoes, I can make a pizza with it. Like, whatever. I don't have to deal with like, all the potassium sorbate, sodium benzoate, glycerides and like really dead, right? So instead of dealing with all of those extra additives, it's just tomato sauce. And but if you ordered a pizza, for example, like coming back to the soy thing, a lot of places will use the pre-shredded cheese. And if you shred like mozzarella by yourself at home, you'll notice like it clumps up immediately. Like the first thing you do when you separate it is it wants to get back together.
Right.
And but if you buy it in the store in the bag, they stay separated, but they got that powder on it. They dust them off so that they don't cake up together. That's soy flour. They use soy flour as an anti-caking agent. So by the time you sprinkle that on the dough and the sauce that comes out of the oven, it's like now you've got soy in the cheese. It's kind of like it's like halfway to vegan cheese. You know, we might as well just get the vegan.
That's a nice way to put it.
Already soy in it. They used soy lecithin as an emulsifier. So usually if you have anything that has both water and oil in it, the way that you get the water and oil to not, keep themselves separate is with an emulsifier. So like if you're making lotion, the water-based ingredients away from like the cocoa butter and the shea butter that you make in the lotion. So usually there'll be some sort of emulsifier that binds together. Same deal with a lot of like baked goods and things like that rely on emulsification of the dough. So like cookies, cakes, all that stuff. A lot of breads where they might use like milk or milk powder or something like that, because once you hydrate it, it becomes milk again, and milk is, naturally an emulsion of fat and water, but once you mix it into a batter or a dough, it can separate under the wrong conditions. Traditionally, you use eggs for that. The problem with eggs is, one, shelf life is a lot lower if you use eggs, and two, not vegan. So if you wanted to make like vegan cookies or things like that, it's a little bit, no bueno. But it's also cheap because soybeans are like this mega crop that America just like really, really pumps out, and we have nothing that we can really do with it except force soybeans down everybody's throat. It's kind of like the way corn was during the Nixon era, where it was like, one of the ways that Nixon tried to get food to be cheaper for everybody so that everyone could, have a meal every night for dinner was to just max out on corn to the point where we've been trying to figure out what we're going to do with all this damn corn ever since, right? It's like people are trying to fuel cars with it and feed it to animals that have no business in nature eating corn, humans included. And, we're still trying to figure out what to do because we're just paying all of these government subsidies to all these farmers to just keep making all this corn. So same thing's happening with soy. And like a lot of the vegan movements and the vegetarian movements and things like that have been low-key funded by a lot of these soy farmer trade organizations and consortiums that have been trying to convince everybody that the best thing that you can do, keep it ITAL. And so as a result, there's a lot of things that are made out of soy that are at the supermarket that look like things that aren't soy. That, you buy like some soy-based like sausages made out of seitan or whatever, and all this other stuff. But that's not enough because not everybody is convinced. So they put the lecithin in all the baked goods. They put the flour in different things like bread, the anti-caking agents and things like cheese and whatnot. They also started to mix in soybean oil as a substitute for oil of other kinds and everything from foods to cosmetics, to the point where even like some of the popular lotion brands and things like that, they started to switch over to using soybean oil just to like, just to cut the product down a little bit, make a couple extra bucks per unit. Like the Palmer's cocoa butter lotion and things like
I
that.
read that recently. They were using soy to use
Yeah, they
it
started sneaking soybean oil in there a few years ago, and I was like, I use it and get like rashes and be like, wait, what's
where the rash come from? Right?
cocoa butter? I don't understand it. And then you read the label and it's like soybean oil. Like, what is?
I don't even know how you get oil out of a soybean.
You squeeze it hard enough, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I like almond milk. I love that. I've been smashing almonds with a hammer ever since. I ain't get no juice ever.
A lot of people don't realize the amount of food allergies there are. And when it comes to something like soy, and it's in so many different things, you know, I look at, you know, even myself with my skin, it wasn't until recently till Devon started saying certain stuff. I hear him say, and I start checking out. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm allergic to about 1,000 things. And I think that's important, man. Food allergies is big. Like you said, they're definitely shoving soy down everybody's throat. We're all kind of,
Soy is like the fentanyl of food and cosmetics right now. They just cut everything. They don't care who drops. Like that's just, it's like, even if you buy a chocolate like candy bar, almost every brand has got some kind of soy lecithin, soybean oil, soy solids, like
everything
crammed in there.
Everything.
You have to find like some real like if you want chocolate that doesn't have soy in it at this point, just go to Ghana. That's it.
That's it.
The minute the cocoa pods leave Ghana, someone's gonna figure out a way to cram some more soy into it.
I believe it because, you know, I've been, my diet mainly, I say like 90% of the time is raw foods. Not, you know, salads, just raw food. You know, I don't even take balsamic vinegar on it because of what Devon just said. Certain brands of balsamic vinegar, they cut the ingredients with soy.
Yeah.
Why
do you need that? It's just vinegar. Why are you cutting this?
What are you trying to do to me, right?
All you need is grape water and thyme. You still can't help themselves.
I was eating something this evening and I got an allergic reaction to it. And I have to now try to figure out what it was because it was just a host. Like I'll take a host of salads. Like I'll have baby spinach and whatever, olives and pickles, whatever. And then I'll have another group over here with a coleslaw or a bean salad will be there. And it's just on a potpourri on a plate. And that's how I eat. But there was something there. I think maybe it was the broccoli. There's a broccoli pear salad that they make, that they have a sauce on. I'm trying to figure out if that soy. It was something.
Sauces will get you.
No, sauces don't get
sleeper agent.
They don't get you. They wait for you. They say, "Oh,
right.
You got to come over here sooner or later. We'll just sit right here."
They wait for you outside the club because they know the club's got metal detectors.
Wait for you at 3:00.
That's crazy though. That's crazy though. Yeah, like everything is in sauce. Everybody wants a little sauce in their life.
Yeah, man. So that's why. But when I get this problem with my, I got my silent reflux. By the way, one day I felt the burn. It was about 2 weeks ago. I actually felt the burn. I never felt the burn. That's why it's called silent. I just get
not silent anymore.
This
reflux spoke up.
I put it back to sleep though. My throat will be inflamed to the point where I get a headache, or I'll get on my left side. It gets bad. But how I tame it is I don't eat anything. I gotta be going to cook it. That's okay. I pass. So I bought some salmon today. So probably tomorrow I'll have some salmon with my salad. But I can't eat a lot of rices anymore. I just, I can. I just have to do it in moderation. But most of the time I'll just stick with it because of this. And I think it is the soy. I think it's the soy. But these guys, they're going to
the alternative is just to cook your own stuff. Stay away from the soy.
I suggest to anybody that's trying to get a baseline for their system, because you don't know what's up or down for you as an individual until you get a baseline for yourself. And one of the best ways to do that is go on an intermittent fast and just eat raw foods for 30 days.
Yeah, that's what I did. I did that for 2 years. I kept journals. I had notepads, notebooks, times a day. I would check my vitals at different times of the day.
Then you get a baseline for who you are. Yeah.
And it's like, at one point, I knew, like, if I the steam coming off the wrong pot, that if I check anything, my blood pressure, my what have you, my pulse, something within half an hour, it was going to be sideways, because it was like I knew it was what was going on. And it's funny, like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple months ago, and I was telling him the same stuff about how I just try to be in control of as much of what I can put into my system as possible. And he thought it was just I was being like, you're just being Devon about it. Don't be an extra, And I was like, well, okay. When you go get gas, which gas station you go to? And he's like, oh, BP. BP. Why you go to BP? No matter what the cost, no matter what state you're in, you always go BP. He's like, yeah, go BP. Why? That's gas. Got to be invigorated. I was like, okay. What kind of... I get the Mobile 1. Full synthetic. It's like, well, why you get the Mobile 1 full synthetic? It's the best bread. What do you mean? You don't put the best stuff in your car whenever you can? I was like, exactly. Every single fluid that goes in your car by brand, but you don't know every ingredient that goes in the only hole in your head that can tell you it tastes good. So, like, what are we really doing?
The one in the middle of your face.
The one in the middle of your face.
Depending on how you live your life, it's the biggest hole you got. So, that's like, what are we really talking about?
I know it's amazing to me, but I understand their struggle. I understand. I've dealt with so many people who try to get the diet together, try to pull their health together, and they don't see it as a cultural change. They just see that I just changed what I have to eat, so therefore I owe it to myself to slip up. But that's what alcoholics say. That's what crackheads say. That's what everybody says. Who can't hold on because they're doing it for the wrong reasons, I guess, whatever. But yeah, it's hard.
No, it's definitely hard. And at the end of the day, the results is worth it. I mean, I always hear people say stuff like, well, you could do all of that and still get hit by a car. Yeah, but I could eat the wrong thing and just itch while I'm alive. You know what I mean? Like, that's always more important.
Somebody said that to me recently. All that health stuff, it's like you're trying to stay alive. You can't live forever. I said, do you really believe that the reason that people eat well, live well, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, is so that they can live forever? You think that is the bottom line? You don't think we're going to die one day? I mean, where does that come from? That comes from a mentality that I can change the direction of this conversation by telling you what your end is. And now you have to prove to me why I'm wrong. It's crazy. It's
I don't
crazy.
even entertain it that far. I just tell them square up, like, yeah, I could get hit by a
I like
car.
that.
You know what I do to avoid getting hit by a car? I don't run horizontally across a 4-lane highway. You know, like you don't see me dancing on the interstate either. Like, I try my best.
4-lane highway.
I try my, well, I live in Florida.
That's
Some
funny.
of the highways are just 4 lanes. And this is as far as they could put anything on the swamp. But, I should use that. New York, 4-lane highway. But, it's just like, yeah, you can reduce your chances of getting hit by cars by avoiding as many unnecessary cars as possible. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like I'm saying, oh, I won't eat, this or I won't eat that. I'm just saying, like, if I eat this or that, I'll make it. Like, that's just, once you put the work into yourself, you have to put in the thought about what goes ingredient to, will the ingredient actually improve
Breaking
the
up a little, you
enjoyment of
breaking up
it?
a little bit, bro.
Yeah, I thought
Oh.
it was just me, because he always sound that way to me.
You pacing. He must be pacing around. This is the beauty. This is the beauty.
Oddly enough, I'm standing
This is the beauty
still
of
for the first time.
Yeah,
I'm standing still for the first time. It's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just.
He said I'm standing still for the first time.
I always pace, even by myself.
Yeah, I'll pace in small spaces, big spaces.
Big restaurant is trying to block me. That's what's going on.
What y'all think about
restaurateur lobby?
What y'all think about what's going on in Haiti?
What I would like to know is when are we gonna stop looking at Haiti as a series of issues and see that somebody, whoever, is making it a constant for their survival on this planet. Because I don't understand why we talk. You know what I'm saying? Why we have to stop looking at Haiti as look at the situation of Haiti here. They had a hurricane here. They had a tornado. No. There's a constant in Haiti that needs to be addressed, and they will be able to survive it just the way the Dominicans survived it on the other side of some imaginary line.
I agree, and I would take it as I agree wholeheartedly, and I would take it a step further to say that the problem isn't just the constant with Haiti, it's the constant hostility that is shown to every single nation that isn't the United States on the Western Hemisphere that fought for its independence. If you look all throughout the Caribbean, if you look all throughout Central America, through South America, the countries that had to fight for their independence all seem to be just left far, far behind in terms of any kind of assistance, any kind of trade negotiations, any kind of economic viability when it comes to comparing that to all of the countries that either still hold their loyalties to, say, France or the United Kingdom or Spain, or just negotiated some sort of like independence, but still like recognize the whichever their former owners were.
What about
former colonizers?
What about Mexico?
But
yeah,
see,
look how we treat Mexico.
Look, I think Mexico falls into the same basket. Well. I think Mexico falls into the same basket because we had so many real face-to-face conflicts with them, not just talking about the slaughter at the Alamo. I mean, we were always toe-to-toe fighting the Mexicans. So I think the Mexican is just the biggest example of what
I'm talking about like it's being as far behind because Mexico, with their, their gross domestic. I can't talk. We ain't gonna say their gross domestic product, but they got a lot of billionaires out there. They're productive out there, just like Canada. Not like the U.S., but they're not like
the gas,
right. But that's also a function of like capitalism. You know what I mean? America's got a bunch of billionaires too. We've got a massive homeless crisis. India has billionaires,
googly billionaires,
and it took until this past decade for the majority of people in the country to have a working toilet in their house or home.
Where are India?
India, in India. That's how Narendra Modi won the election, by promising people that they would have a functioning toilet in their home. And he won the vote by a landslide. That was like one of his big campaign promises. And that was in a country that already had billionaires. So like that, whether or not a country has billionaires, that's impressive. You know what I mean?
When I say billionaires, I'm talking about just like with infrastructure. I know that the guy, one of the billionaires I know I'm speaking of, he's like into like the I think it's like telecommunications or something like that.
It's Carlos Slim. Yeah.
What's the last name?
Slim.
Yeah, I know. I read about a couple of these guys and a couple of the industries that they're in. I'm just talking like from an infrastructure standpoint. They don't seem too far left behind, like let's say the Haitis or the Jamaicans.
It's not necessarily left behind as in you're left behind and now you're done. It's like left behind as in if something happens to you, we got nothing for you. Like what was the like? Mexico can take care of itself more or less. It has natural resources and things like that, but like they're also not a tiny island like Jamaica or Cuba. You know what I mean? Like, these other countries can thrive, but
I think also
it's more like being left to their own devices.
I think more so in terms of adding to it, Devon, the point Devon is making is that Mexico, when you talk about not being an island nation, it's very large, a huge deposit of natural gas, of which American will be hard pressed to find a substitute for in terms of supply. When you find that situation, you have to find massive poverty. You must. Capitalism is not the exchange of goods and services. It's not a free marketplace. It's not work hard, Horatio Alger. It's not any of that, unless you hurt somebody doing it. Then it's capitalism. Right. That's capitalism.
Capitalism is the theft of surplus value.
You know what I mean? And in Mexico, you may think they feel it less because Mexico has an influx of people coming in from its south, from the isthmus, from Nicaragua, Costa Rica, trying to get out from South America. They have that traffic, so they always have a supply of cheap labor, ready, willing,
and able. Not to mention its own citizens, right? Not to mention its own citizens because of all the right.
Sometimes to the detriment of its own citizens. In some cases.
Yeah, but a lot of. I would say that there's a small percentile of Mexico that is San Francisco, and the rest of the country is open. And then the closer you get to just like right up at the border with the U.S., it's all like Sacramento. Like it just gets worse from there. You know what I mean? Like Mexico they have a lot of the same issues that we have in America, but they do a much more efficient job of taking all of the underclass and just making sure they never see the light of day. No one ever talks about it because we have this notion that especially like as Americans, that in America, you can be black, you can be white, you can be Asian, you can be Hispanic, you can be Arab, you can be whatever. But in Mexico, everyone's Mexican. You know, the same way, it's like the old Dave Chapelle joke, right? Like, in America, we're all fighting, and in China, everyone's Chinese, right? Tell that to the Uyghurs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just every other country does a much better job at suppressing the people that they mistreat and exploit than America does, because, you know, we'll talk about it and we'll fight about it.
Well, also, America has more, don't get the statement wrong, more of a transparent system than other countries. But we don't have, up until January 6th anyway, we don't have coups as a threat to our political stability here, where that is a political reality in a lot of countries, that we could be couped out any minute and whoever we elected could be shot any minute. That's a living, walking reality in some countries, and it's not here.
It's not here because America will shoot back. America doesn't have transparency. America has an open carry license.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have a different system. I remember, but no, that's true. I remember being in Africa where the greatest fear for me, the people had for me, was that they would come in and raid the room, because I was under house arrest. They would raid the place that I was at and take me out in the middle of the night. Nobody would see me again. And it wouldn't even be a question. It wouldn't be like, what happened to him? Nothing. We're here. You can post it. My child is missing. That's what I meant when I said more transparent. I didn't mean we were transparent. We're not transparent.
No. I agree with you. I was just saying, like, you know, to me that's what the transparency looks like. It's just America's transparent.
It looks like the Second Amendment.
You better not. Don't make me tell you twice. Like, you can act up if you want. If you cross this line, you will get clapped.
So that's what one of the comedians said.
Unless you're white.
The reason that you have a Second Amendment is because you have a First Amendment. So if you got the right to if you got the right to run your mouth, you better have a right to defend yourself.
Right. The freedom of speech is not the freedom from consequence.
Yo, that Dave Chapelle joke, you remember what stand-up that's from? that's funny.
Oh no, what's the name?
It was one of the first
Sticks and Stones?
Netflix ones.
What's it? Sticks and Stones?
I think it might have been Sticks and Stones. I think so.
Oh, that was one of the Netflix ones?
Yeah.
What y'all think about the last one, man? What's up with comedy? We can't be funny no more. Comedy, there's no more tough.
I don't understand what.
It's the same.
I do understand, but I don't understand what was the offense in what he said. That's what I'm getting for the trans community. What did he say that offended you? Now they're saying, by what I understand, it's because he talks about it, he makes people feel enabled to go out there and be aggressive towards gay people, because the conversation is being spoken about. When the conversation is being spoken about the Latino babies being separated from their parents, I don't see. When they're talking about Black people being, I don't see that kind of a thing. It's just with their community, if you speak about them, you're giving people a license to attack them. Because there's nothing in what Dave said that was, other than funny, I don't see the big.
See, for me, I look at it like only thing that's always touchy for me personally is like when people talk about like suicide or something like that, right? So when I heard him coming up on that segment, I'm like, oh, well, this must be it, because it's like suicide is just like, I never know, it's like you don't know what somebody went through. It's just, that's just gotta be crazy. So it's just like, to me personally, right? So I seen him coming up on that segment. I'm like, wow, then you about to go in? And then he didn't, like, he just spoke about it. I think he paid kind of like a homage to, you know what I'm saying, this person, like, kind of like just displayed that, their relationship and kind of like crack a small joke about it, and the comedians thing. I'm like, what's wrong with people? He got on everybody, black people. He got a little bit of everybody. State of affairs.
He called Hillary.
Think it's that
You don't think what, D?
I don't think it's that serious, and I don't think these people are that serious. I think it's like YouTube. You know what I mean? Like the way YouTube works is if you want to pop off on YouTube, then all you got to do is look at the trending page, right? And usually whatever's on the trending page,
Right.
And it's kind of like a cause and effect. Whatever's trending on Google is what's trending on YouTube. And the whole purpose for trying to get on trending is YouTube runs on a recommendation engine. So if you are talking about something that's trending, if you're talking about something that's trending, you're talking about something that a lot of people are interested in right now. And as a result, YouTube rewards you with attention. That's the entire game. That's it. It's search engine optimization. Dave Chapelle dropped the last Netflix special on his contract, which meant it was going to be the one that people were going to pay attention to a lot. Maybe not the most, but it was going to get a lot of attention right now. And it's kind of like in this desert of stand-up specials because there hasn't been a lot of them because COVID, right? People usually ply the craft on the road. They go to the comedy clubs. They figure out what works, what doesn't. They work on their timing. It's like they keep rehearsing for the hour-long special. So because they didn't have comedy clubs to go to for a year and a half, there's not a lot of new specials that came out. So if you're a fan of stand-up comedy, or even like, you have a Netflix account, because even if you don't like stand-up comedy, Netflix will give it to you because that's one of the major things that they invested in. You're going to see just Dave Chapelle, so it's going to be trending. So if you talk about something that's trending, you're going to get more attention. And the way you get the most attention is called negative interaction.
Well, who's trying to get the attention?
All of the people who are complaining, every single person that you hear saying Dave Chapelle, Dave Chapelle, Dave Chapelle, Dave Chapelle, what they are saying to you is me. Pay attention to me. To me because I got a book. Pay attention to me because I wrote this screenplay. Pay attention to me because I need more Twitter followers. Pay attention to me. This is not like the minute they mention Dave Chapelle, the conversation stops being about Dave Chapelle. And it completely becomes about their ability to seize on something that can get them more money.
Well, that's super valid because I was thinking of it. I wasn't thinking of it like the me effect, but in a way it is because I was thinking like the news, like the networks, or whatever. I always look at it as them that's pushing it, but then it goes back to what you're saying. They're talking about it because it's trending, and now that they're talking about it, they're getting the ad revenue in the back end because they got people watching their programming. But on an individual level, like on YouTube with content creators and stuff like that, it's definitely me.
Yeah, everyone on Twitter who's complaining, it's me. Everyone who's getting airtime, people who are getting interviewed by news outlets, people who are getting TV appearances. Every time you see somebody on the news, like on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, and they do like one of those little talking head segments, that's like $5,000 to $20,000 a pop to promote yourself. You're getting paid to promote yourself and get into everyone's living room and gym and barbershop and what have you. You know what I mean? So like the attention economy is real.
But tell me,
that's what they're building.
Because that what you said goes without saying. I mean, it happens with everything. Kyrie didn't want to play. Didn't want to get vaccination. Everybody had an opinion about it because that way they get some attention and it's about them. So what you're saying is very valid.
And nobody cares if Kyrie Irving coughed or sneezed. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what I was looking at between Dave Chappelle is Dave Chappelle versus the corporate America.
What do you mean?
Because it seems like they're telling Dave, or some folks are trying to tell Dave what he can and cannot say. And like he said in that other special also, Sticks and Stones, you know, he can say nigga, 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 nigga a million times.
Right.
And nothing. But if he says anything about this community, the trans community, he is shut down. As a matter of fact, the way the joke goes, he was with the woman that's the standards in practice, and that's the people in Hollywood that let you know what you can and can't say on their air, or at least television anyway. And he called them in and said, we had a nice conversation. He said he had a lot of respect for the lady. He said, why are we here? He said, well, Dave, you can't say the word faggot. He said, okay, I won't say the word faggot. He went to get up and walk away. He turned around. He says, tell me, how come I can say nigger, but I can't say faggot? He said, well, Dave, you're not gay. He said, I'm not a nigger either.
I'm not a nigga either.
You know what I mean? Because that's what I think.
There is an element to that. Yeah, definitely.
Because it seems like there's a structure out there that the me people help fuel with their self-indulgence. There's a fraction out there that says you can talk about killing Black people,
anything,
calling women bitch, calling out women bitches, sluts, you know, wet ass private areas. You could do anything, but you can't say anything against the gay community. And they're not even a unified community, which is why they LOBMOUSC in it out here. They're not even a unified community. So I think there's a structure behind this that's promoting what we can and cannot say, or at least what comedians can and cannot say.
Maybe, but I mean, no one has had their enrichment challenged because they said the bad thing yet. You know what I mean? Like, no one's lost out on money that they didn't make somewhere else in the marketplace of ideas and attention and content.
Well, I'm glad you said that, not to cut you off, but because Pop dropped the 3 F-bombs, I'm out of here with monetization if I wanted to, if just because of that. So I might.
We were just having a good conversation.
No, yeah, we are. I was just using it. I'm just saying if in that situation. Well, no, I'm just saying if it was looked at like that, that would be the situation.
I have not signed my waiver.
You know what?
I said I didn't sign my waiver yet. I can say whatever I want.
Waiver yet.
Oh, wait. Yeah, nah.
I ain't get a talent release waiver.
Nah,
you know.
It's just a conversation.
Nah, I'm messing with you. I'm just playing. Yeah, I mean, don't demonetization and things like that. That's different. That's not. That's corporate, but it's not. That's like an ad tech thing. You know, like, and ad tech is really, really like funny with how.
What do you mean ad techs?
I mean the companies that work on the technology underneath the advertising industry.
Mm.
They have rules. They have unspoken sort of terms and conditions for what they consider a brand risk versus not being a brand risk. And any corporation that you've ever heard of, they are not paying attention to any of these things. Like, like sometimes, like when, like say you started to say something, you know, bad about trans people or in defense of Hitler or something, you know, you decided to deny the Holocaust, for example. Coca-Cola is not going to hear that. But you will stop having Coca-Cola ads on your YouTube channel if you said that in a video.
You're very eloquent, please.
That's because of the ad tech industry. That's not because of Coca-Cola. They don't care, right? Like, so there are companies that are basically middlemen. So the way it works is if you are
about Mexico.
if you are
Yeah.
if you have if you have content, right? Like say you're a content creator, and then you make some of your income through ad revenue. That ad revenue is probably going to come from an ad network. So the easiest example is YouTube. You make your money from AdSense. AdSense, or whatever ad network you're on that cuts you a check, they are an intermediate between you and the advertiser. And so what they do is, one, they place the ads on your content, but they also work with advertising agencies that represent those brands. So now you, the content creator, are getting your ads served by the advertisement platform. That advertisement platform is using as their middleman ad agencies that are using technology, which really, they say technology and they make it sound like a lot, but really what it is they've got an Excel spreadsheet full of good words and bad words. And if you have one of the bad words, then you don't get access to their client base, who might include the Coca-Colas, Pepsi, Delta Airlines, what have you, right? So there's a lot of degrees of separation. And even that is like an oversimplification, because there can be anywhere between 1 and 20 some odd different companies between content creator and the advertiser that is running ads against their content. Even if you get, as a content creator, a deal to do a live read ad, like say, you're doing an ad for Dollar Shave Club or Raid Shadow Legends or one of the other things every YouTuber barfs at, right? That could still be as a result of 2, 3, maybe 4 different intermediaries between the advertiser and your content. So where it is that there's this like corporate conspiracy to stop people from, bad things and saying the bad words, isn't as cut and dry as, well, corporate America doesn't want this, corporate America doesn't want that. It's just focus groups, internet trends, things like that. Someone might, and, it could also be as simple as an ad tech agency has one employee who has made their sensibilities the sensibilities of trillions of dollars worth of advertising clients.
But that is so true. That is so true that what you just said is so true that therein lies, he can't see my hand shaking because he doesn't have the video. But herein lies the problem. Herein lies the problem. That anybody, Joe Sixpack, could be having a bad day, decide to develop a logarithm that would tag this or tag that or bench this or bench that or cause flames or pick up. All just because, yeah, exactly. But
100%.
And I think that is the crux. I think that's what Dave Chapelle is trying to say in terms of corporate. He's not saying there's a bunch of big guys smoking cigars in leather chairs in big conference rooms making these decisions all the time. That used to be before the introduction to algorithms and social media. Those guys used to sit there and say, only people who work in Wall Street will have to have blue suits, black suits, or gray suits. You don't walk into Wall Street with a brown suit. I remember one time when I was down there in the 60s, I had to find out the hard way, working at Manufacturers Hanover Trust. You don't wear brown suits. Now, there was no algorithm back then, but today you can get a guy who...
that is an algorithm.
It is an algorithm, but it wasn't an algorithm.
It's like saying there's no...
You're right.
But
I think it is an
it's one
algorithm. I
that's
was just
in
trying to
play,
separate it
right?
from the mathematical
Right.
algorithms that are out. That's it. But
Right.
you're right. It is an algorithm.
It's not digital, but it's something that you can quantify that will have a cause and effect relationship between your actions and your outcomes. You know, like it's like saying calculus has always been around. It's just people ain't calculated yet. You know, like it's just there have always been, like, even when there were dinosaurs, if 3 dinosaurs were hanging out, there were always going
geometry
to be 3
was involved to find out where to.
Right. Just because they weren't counting 3 doesn't mean there weren't 3 dinosaurs chilling at the watering hole. You know what I mean? But like, you're absolutely right. It could just be someone who's having a bad day, and ultimately, that's what this whole Netflix thing is. It's one of the people who work at Netflix whose job it is to be one of the media gatekeepers, being frustrated that they're not keeping the gate the way they'd like to. And
yeah, the way they individually like to. And then people want this, people want to always make a distinction between, I use racism in this case, not necessarily mean race, but all hate, you know, Jewism, bigotry, Asianism,
whatever.
Bigotry, yeah. But see, to me, that what you say, I was trying to make a distinction between bigotry and racism. Racism can't be an individual thing. At least at one time, it was the case. You could be a bigot and act on your bigotry, but racism could only be systemic. But when you now have these people in positions, these gatekeepers, who can make their individual, or these, and we call it the reverse side of it, the Karens. The Karens always found that I have a right, so you must do what I say. I'm white woman. When you have a gatekeeper who has this kind of one-mindedness.
The gatekeepers have always been there. Like the way that the institutionalized forms of racism or homophobia or whatever it is, misogyny, what have you, they only exist because of the bigots. So it's not like there's a system because of the bigots. It's the bigots who create the system that is slavery. Like that, they build the engine and they turn the key. So it's like it's the same thing, but you know, like there's always been the algorithms. It's just we quantify it better now.
Absolutely.
Like, racism and systemic prejudices and systemic gatekeeping have always been there, and it's always been the individual bigots who make it strong, because they're the ones who, like, someone has to invent redlining. That person had to have been a bigot. You know what I mean? It's like those things. It's always, these problems have always existed, and they always will. It's just how we identify.
But you know, it doesn't have to get that deep, because, you know, like you said, the difference between systemic racism and being fueled by an individual as part of that collective. The cop, how many in the last 20 years, how many times have you seen police officers in positions of authority, just plain old police officers all throughout the South, remember, to the KKK. Now, when they walking out there with their state trooper uniform on, you don't see them as KKK, but when they coming at you, you know there's something wrong with those. You're a person of color anyway. You know there's something wrong with them. So that's a perfect example.
Anyone who's seeing a state trooper uniform and they're not seeing a
KKK,
they weren't raised right.
Old training
like,
was lacking.
Look, if you can look at me like I'm a criminal by default, I'm going to assume that you're a Klansman by default. We can work to prove one another wrong if we make it that far.
but I think it's the only balance.
Listen, guys, I got something that'll help you guys slow this down a little bit. Sarai wants to know, what is gatekeeping? So how do we explain what gatekeeping is? She said, what is gatekeeping, and like how does that pertain to Netflix? How do you break this down into simplest form?
Like, Sarai, think about it like this. When you go to school, you go to a different classroom for every subject. Math is in this classroom, language arts in that classroom, arts in that classroom, gyms in that classroom, and all of these classrooms you go to, you have to successfully go in and out in order for you to get your high school diploma. You have to successfully go in this room, do what is necessary to do, and then come out. The gatekeeper is the teacher. The teacher is the one that will be kind to you because she loves you, not loves you, but she'll be kind to you because you have an affinity towards her. You're somebody from her cultural background. You share the same views about Halloween. You share the same views about Trump. I was joking, of course. And so therefore she's going to teach you a certain way. But you could have another gatekeeper who particularly doesn't like Karens, as an example, and will be very, very hard on Karen. That gatekeeper has more influence on your coming in and out successfully for you to get your high school diploma. Ask her if that makes any sense, Taj.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's whoever. Gatekeeping is like the act of controlling access to something. And when you talk about things like culture or opportunity, usually when people talk about gatekeepers, they talk about someone who, like, say, if you're in a job interview, the hiring manager is the gatekeeper. So there's a theoretical gate that you have to cross before you can enter that company as an employee. And the gatekeeper is that hiring manager who might take a liking to you or might not, just depending on the way the conversation goes, or it could be as simple as how you look, how you dress, how you speak, what your hair looks like. It's hard to know what's in the mind of other people. But the idea is that every group that you might be interested in joining, at some point, if a group gets large enough, and it could just be like, 5 or 6 people, someone will take it upon themselves to be the gatekeeper and decide whether or not you belong based on their own personal opinions or bias. And the way that pertains to Netflix, for example, is, say you have a cartoon that you want to sell to Netflix, right? You're trying to sell them the series. The simplest way to explain how that process works is you show them something, either a pilot episode or sketches or a script, something that expresses what it is you're trying to create. And someone on Netflix's side has to read it and decide whether or not that's a good fit for everything else that Netflix wants to put on the air. That person is your gatekeeper in that situation.
That's two great breakdowns right there. Yeah, she says she got it. She still says, I understand about the metaphorical gatekeepers. Yeah, no, it's really not a metaphor.
I mean, sometimes there are actually gates there that you can't walk in. Sometimes there's just somebody at the gate who will ask you, like, if you ever want to get into a nightclub in the future, then there will be someone there to ask you to show your ID, and they'll judge your outfit and whoever you're going to the club with, and that's a literal gatekeeper. You ain't getting past that gate.
I'm about to say, I mean, there's many gatekeepers. I mean, from the taxation department to the guy, to the bouncer at the door at the club, to the shady guy in the alley. If there's a gate, somebody will show up and help keep it, especially if it's
right.
a dollar. Yeah, especially if it's a dollar attached to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's the dollar. Sometimes it's just they do it to feel powerful. Sometimes that's what it is. And I think with this Netflix situation in particular, if you have an interest as a creative to work in the film, TV, media industry, and you work at a company like Netflix or CBS or NBC, Universal, Peacock, whatever, like one of the things that attracts you to that job is you can get into the gate. You get beyond the gate somehow, in some small way, by being an employee of and therefore associated with that distributor. And what a lot of people do with that opportunity is they try to keep other people out for different reasons. Sometimes they try to keep people who are nothing like them out because of that bias. They only want to see more of themselves and they want to suppress the voices of others. And other people only want to see more of themselves because they think that culturally their voices should be the loudest. Like they don't, or they'll try to keep away people who are too much like them because I should have the spot because I think that attention is scarce and only I should get the glory. There's like a lot of different motivations for why someone would want to be a gatekeeper. But in this scenario, basically what's happening is there are people who work at Netflix who think that their voices should be heard more. And the fact that Dave Chappelle's voice is carrying louder than theirs are right now and perhaps ever will, that run completely oppositional to their voice. And they see that as a threat to the future of their voice. But because his voice is trending right now and his name carries weight with search engines and social media, they can use that opposition to gain some leverage and increase their sort of social currency, their social media clout, by using his name and using their opposition to him. Because at some point they tried keeping the work internally, right? Like there were employees in Netflix who said, take him off the air, take him off the platform, he doesn't belong here. And when the corporate head said, no, he's here, everyone else is here, everyone's voice is getting heard. Also, we already paid for it, and he's making us a lot of money. So they took it to the social media again. They took it to the TV media, the print media again. Because at some point, a lot of people who are gatekeepers because they want something more for themselves. And capitalism has brainwashed a lot of people into thinking that the way that you get more for yourself is to limit how much everyone else around you can get. That's
exactly. Say that again. They didn't hear you in the back.
Yeah, say
that again. They didn't hear you in the back.
That is the scarcity mindset. That the way for you to be rich is to keep your neighbor poor. Exactly. That the only way that you can get more under the concept of capitalism is to make sure that everyone else gets less than you. And that's not true. Even if you live in a capitalist society, that doesn't have to be true. But so many people have been brainwashed with that notion from the moment that they encounter just human society, culture, school, family, friends, what have you. They become conditioned to believe that that's the only way this works.
Yes, and it's deep. It's so deep that have you ever considered in a capitalistic society, which I'm using our definition of capitalism, meaning that it's not alone that I make money. You got to not make money for me to make money. Capitalism, okay? Under this system, entrenched for hundreds of years, you would think that they would teach financial management. Do you know you can graduate an MD, a lawyer, an engineer? You could graduate the highest degrees that this planet, man-made, people on this planet made, and not know anything about financial literacy. It's because it's not to empower you. I don't want you to go to school to get a good job, to do well. I want you to go to school to get a good job, to make me do well.
That's a fact. Back to me,
like Devon said, exactly. It's the me thing. They are not. I always sat and I wondered, How can we keep calling ourselves a cat? They got all these commercials about finances, invest your money. We don't know anything about investing. You could take courses. Do you know you could take courses in finance in this country and still not know financial literacy? It's just amazing.
But why is that though?
Because they don't want you to know financial literacy. I don't want you to know
they
how to
get
make
rich
your
by
dollar.
keeping you poor.
So what do they teach you then?
That's right.
So what do they teach you during the course?
Look, I didn't say course. I say anywhere from preschool to PhD. You do
Right.
not get any financial literacy courses, period, El Mundo. Nowhere through that. You could get a degree in finance, a master's degree in finance, and not be told about personal finance. There is no place in this country, in our educational structure, in a capitalist educational structure, that they think money is the root of all that there is. They don't teach you how to make it. They don't teach you how to make it work, and they don't teach you how to make it benefit you in your personal goals and family goals.
And
No
what
place.
they do teach instead
Well, I was about
is
to
how
say
to be a good how to be a good employee.
how
Right,
to
how to
be-
be a good employee, and a good employee is a broke employee. Never
I was
forget.
just watching a movie this
Broken
afternoon.
sick.
What is that movie called? A family that prays together, stays together. Blah 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 blah. But it's about this white woman, rich corporate construction, blah blah blah. But her best friend, never mind. Bottom line, no matter how much you get, let me put you this way. If I owned a basketball team, I own the Rockets, I own $1 billion basketball team. I make $1 billion, $1.5 billion every year. Every year. Every year. Do you think that I would lose money paying this guy $5 million a year to play basketball, $10 million a year to play basketball, 20 million? I think cap about, what is the cap about 21.1, 21.5? I don't know what the cap is. Whatever the cap is, $20 million.
It's close to that. You're close, whatever it is.
I'm not losing money giving this man $20 million, but he thinks he's top of the doo-doo heap with his $20 million a year. I was this show that I was just talking about, a family plays together. This woman was very, very, very proud, very, very proud of the fact that she worked hard and she helped this company make record gains and record profits. What did you get from all of it? You got a check. You got a little $50,000 check here, a little $75,000 bonus check. I'll give you $1 million bonus check. These corporate guys who are getting these $10, $20 million bonus checks, how much do you think the person who's making, who's giving them that money is making? They're not teaching you how to use your money in this country. There's a guy here, a young guy. When I say young, I mean he's like 30 years old. His family is wealthy, very, very wealthy. He's here in Connecticut. He said, you know where he spent his summers? 13, 14, 15 years old? The summer camp. You know what their summer camp taught them? Financial literacy. CDs, how to flip CDs at 13 or 14. That's where Bill Gates is sending his kids. That's why when the money flips over to them, it keeps flipping, like in the case of the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, and some other people, the Kennedys, because they sending these kids to camp to teach them that which is not allowed to be taught in the public educational system in this country. In a capitalist country. That's an oxymoron for me, if you ever heard of it. But nobody ever thinks about it. Nobody ever talks about it. Because they don't want you to keep your money. They want you to spend your money. I can't get rich if you don't spend your money. We're a consumer-based society.
That's real. Well.
If you want to talk about the corporate agenda, there are people who talk about this stuff pretty often. It's just that when it comes down to some of those bad words that you can't say and still rank in the algorithm, that right there. There's two sides to every conversation, sometimes as many as 200 sides, every conversation, about every supposedly taboo topic. But if you start talking about like actually trying to figure out why it is that our government took away both our ability to figure out what to do with our money and our right to be healthy, and when we get sick, to be seen by people at an affordable cost who can make us better, you won't see the light of day. When you start really addressing those problems and like start teaching people how to take more control over their own health and their own wealth, that's when you go bye-bye. Right?
You know, to show you what you're saying,
Still,
the
if he
accuracy
talks
of what
about
you're
not
saying,
getting a vaccine,
the Black Panther Party was started to keep to protect the community against from police abuse, and the part that I only knew, I didn't know that part. The part that I worked on in Brooklyn was teaching families how to use their welfare checks to get nutritious meals out of that little bit of funds, how to make clothes so your kids can go to school looking decent and stuff like that. That's when they got clamped down on. We don't want you to be independent of the system. We don't need you to be independent of the system. We need you to be just like what you just said. That's when the gatekeepers start popping off. That's when
that's what gets the gate slammed. You don't get to look at the gate anymore.
You
better not
Ouch,
mention no
right?
gate anymore.
But it's just amazing. Like for instance, what he's going to say about healthcare. In our Constitution, in the writings of this country, it says we as Americans are endowed with certain inalienable rights.
Inalienable rights.
Right. What are they? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's the first one?
Life.
How dare you charge me for health care? You got in the Constitution that you're obliged by the government to give me health care. Now watch my phone get cut off tonight.
Not so true though.
I would say that the counter argument to that is to quote Jafar from the Disney movie Aladdin. You'd be surprised what you could live through. He said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We didn't say how much.
If they're inalienable rights, if they're rights endowed to all of us in this country, that can't be taken away, that can't be obstructed, how are you charging how are you spending more money on healthcare than all other nations in the world, developing nations in the world? You know, those little things that Bernie Sanders always puts up. We pay this much for insulin. This is how much everybody else in the world pays for insulin. Mm-hmm. How do you justify that with life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? Because they talk with one hand.
You can pursue happiness. You can
life.
Do it.
Life does not.
Yeah.
They didn't say pursue life. They said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life.
You lived.
I'm not living if you can't. You're not protecting my life. You can't.
They didn't say you have the. They didn't say you have the right to a long life or a protected life. You have the right to live. You get the right to life. That's how they look at it. You know what I mean? Like that's how the argument always works.
I'm gonna go back and do the research on the conversations that were had at the time, and I'm gonna see if that was the case when they did it. Because when if you look at the conversations they had around the Second Amendment, it's mind-staggering how almost 90% of the whole conversation was because folks were a lot afraid that there were more slaves than white people. And what will we do in a breakout? That's how many slave revolts that there were before 1776. That's how many slave uprisings that there were. That they were so afraid that they had to make that the Second Amendment, the unrestricted right to bear arms.
But all the people who had that right were the same people who had the right to live. And neither of them looked like us. So, and
I got this gun in my hand to guarantee my life to live.
That's all you got. You can use some of the Constitution to protect the other parts of it. That's about as good as it's going to get.
That's about as far as it's going to go.
I think the argument for, not the argument for why, but the explanation for why, their argument, the capitalist argument, for why you don't learn financial literacy and also why you don't get affordable, universal right to healthcare and the preservation and improvement of life, just the quality of your health, is because that's what keeps you a better employee on both fronts. Keep you broke, keep you sick. We tie health insurance in this
Absolutely.
company
Absolutely.
to whether or not you have a job, which means you've got to go make somebody else grotesquely rich before we'll
Exactly.
even give you the most baseline coverage in
Before we
the
give you
worst kinds of
$7.25
insurance.
an hour.
And then once you have that insurance, we're going to make sure two things. One, you're never going to get the day off to go to a doctor. You're going to lose your job and therefore lose your health insurance. And two, when you do somehow scam your way into getting to a doctor against all your capitalist overlords' will, you're still going to have to drop a copayment because we will keep you broke. You will drop a copay every step of the way.
That's right.
Just to get the visit, to get the medication, to get the follow-up appointment, all of that. It's
Right.
It's a hell of a system.
Because they want you to pursue that happiness.
It's a hell of a system. Yo, before we get up out of here, y'all, let me get a jewel from each one of y'all, just about a peace of mind. Because between the soy, the gatekeepers, between the Netflix, between the fentanyl, yo, that's the quote of the conversation. The soy is the fentanyl of the food industry. Capitalist, like, how do we maintain some sort of peace, man? How do we, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do we do? Leave me with a jewel, Devon. Leave me with a jewel, Pop.
Balance. Our culture doesn't understand balance. We got to go all the way that way, or we got to go all the way this way. We politicize and we polarize every conversation, guaranteeing no balance, because balance will disrupt the system. How do you maintain balance in yourself? Give yourself 10 minutes, 3 times a day, where you don't do anything but sit your ass down quietly. Don't think, don't talk, don't look, close your eyes, just blank out, think of sunsets, think of things that make you happy. 3 times a day, just do it. Help create that balance.
I'm still working on one. I'm still working on one or two of those 10-minute breaks. What about you, D?
I would say take peace, find peace with the knowledge that there's a system out there that it's not designed for you to win, and by all logic probably doesn't want you to win. And remember, with that knowledge, that you therefore don't owe them anything. You don't owe them your free time. You don't owe them your free headspace. You don't even owe them a fight. Got it.
Right.
You want to resist whatever way you can. And how do you resist? Well, a wise man once said that at least 3 times a day, you take 10 minutes and you don't do nothing. I would expand that to say maybe make it 4 or 5 times. Take a nap once a day. Find
Go
a
for
way,
it, right?
Go, and preferably sleep on the job. Boss makes $1, you make a dime. Take all your naps on company time. Resistance does not have to be violent. Resistance doesn't have to be active. Resistance can be just as simple as non-participation. Take 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes. Take 15 minutes. Take 2 hours a day. Dude, I don't know who and all is listening right now, so I can't tell you how to fill those time slots. what's good for the goose might not be right for the gander. You know what I mean? But what I will say is, remember that, like, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but it's like the First Amendment. They have the right to try to challenge you for it. If you want to exercise your right to all of those things, some of the best things you can do for your health is take care of your mental and emotional health. One of the best things you can do for your mental and emotional health is meditation. Sometimes meditation can mean you sit like a pretzel and go home for 45 minutes, do some yoga, do some Pilates. Sometimes it means you want to go to the gym and lift.
Exactly.
Sometimes it means you want to take a nap. Sometimes whatever
Exactly.
it is that puts you in your mental health state of being calm, cool, and collected, do it. Because you owe it to yourself, and you don't owe it to them to deprive yourself of it.
Outstanding. That's my boy. Did I ever introduce you to him? That's my boy.
Yeah, that's my guy. Right? That's my guy right there. Oh, it's funny. Messing with Devon here. When y'all look back at this, I've sat here and like rechanged the title of this, like every Devon quote, every other Devon quote, and I got a whole scribbled on paper here. I'm holding it up right now. It's like the 10th time I'm switching it. I forgot what he just said. I'm trying. Non-participation resistance. That was the last one.
I tell Devon all the time, you got to just slow this up because I got to record it. You got to stop. You got to stop. But, hey, man, it was great chopping it up with you two gentlemen.
Always. Always.
To the men that I love a lot on the earth. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, we're going to do it
Love
again.
y'all with my whole heart. Glad to be a part of this surprise podcast.
A lot of what I've been doing is really just having conversations and kind of taking everything away from interviewee, podcasty kind of things. Like
formats, yeah,
because people just have regular conversations, and then I can sit there and say, "Oh, Devon will interview about this teacup," and then we get into one of these conversations. So, and then I couldn't even plan one of these conversations. So it's just like, hey, let's go have a conversation. And people don't know how to have conversations. People know how to type.
It's a dying art.
People type and text and don't respond and leave you unseen and all this weirdo stuff. Don't know how to put together thoughts and sentences. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, man.
I think the leaving on scene and the non-participation is also okay. If anyone's listening to this and they do that, hey, every time you give your downtime to anyone else, it is a blessing. It's like people who live in the desert if they spit. That's the gift. So if you don't feel like giving that gift today, that's okay.
No, I definitely don't mean it like that. It's definitely. I don't want to seem like that. Thank you, D. I appreciate that because I definitely don't want to seem like that. But I just mean where it's just like, it just goes on for weeks, months, and then it's like 10 years later, it's like, where have you been? I don't know. I just feel like communication could be better. A lot of this stuff we can figure out what to do with all this old corn and all this soy if we communicate.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm out.